Hey first grade art friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. We're going to do something a little different this week. We're going to be working with clay. So what I need you to do is you have your container that has all of the things that you need. But what I also want you to do is go and grab a piece of cardboard, either like a cereal box or a cracker box or something for you to work on, because you can see this has kind of been my clay mat, and because clay leaves a little bit of a residue, so you want to have something that you can work with your clay on. So if you want to go ahead and grab that, all right, and then you're going to peel off the tape that's attaching your clay tools, and you should have 4 things. You should have a wooden skewer, you should have a piece of a straw, you should have a popsicle stick, and then you should have this tongue depressor that is pointed on both ends. Okay. In addition to that stuff, there is something in this little envelope, and it says the word templates. And what you can do is you can carefully peel the tape away, because we don't want to rip the envelope. And then Herbey's having trouble getting in this. You're going to want to open this up. And inside you're going to find this shape, and this shape, and this shape. And if you'll remember our bird project earlier in this year, these shapes should remind you of a bird. And we are going to be actually making the first parts of a clay bird today. So if you want to go ahead, get those things ready, get out your templates, get your clay tools ready, and then get your piece of, cardboard, then we'll get started. All right, guys, so we're going to open up this container, and we're going to take the lid off and put it aside. And inside here, there's a piece of paper towel. It probably should still be moist. And then there are some pieces of clay. And what you can do is you can pull them out. There's a small, there's either 2 or 3 pieces of clay. This one is a small square. This one is a rectangular shape. And then this one is a larger rectangle. And I'm just going to peel the I'm going to peel the paper towel off. I'm going to take the container out of the way, and I'm just going to set this down on my piece of cardboard. Now, one of the things that you want to do is you're probably super excited and you want to poke and pinch and do all kinds of stuff to the clay. But for this particular project, what I need for you to do is make sure that you leave this slab of clay just the way it is. Okay. And the reason is that it is a certain thickness, which is good for our project, and we don't want to make it any thinner. And it is the perfect size for everything that we need. So go ahead, get your clay pieces out. I've got my pieces right here. You can set them on your piece of cardboard, and then we'll move on. So the first shape that we are going to talk about is this body shape, okay? And you can set this down onto this rectangular piece here. You can kind of set it down. You can put it towards the bottom, or you can just so that it fits on. It doesn't matter where you place it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this wooden skewer, it's like your pencil, and what you're going to do is you're going to trace around the outside of this template with your wooden skewer. So it's like you're drawing with that. And when you pull that off, you're going to get this. So it's just like tracing on a piece of paper, but instead you're using clay and this wooden skewer. Okay? So go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut this extra clay away from this shape. So what you can do is you can take this particular tool that is pointy on the end, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of push it down through the clay, just like that. You can see I cut that piece off. And then I'm just going to carefully use this tool, and I'm tracing around, and what's happening is it's allowing me to cut off those extra parts of the clay. So I'm just tracing it around. Boom, I cut that off. And now I just have this top piece. So I'm just going to carefully work my way down, and then I can pull that apart. Okay, so now I have this slice of watermelon kind of. And if the edges are a little bit gooby, you can kind of smooth them around just like that. And you can kind of get it so that there it is. Okay, so go ahead and cut that out, and then we're going to just set it aside for a minute. All right, and after you do that, we'll go on to the next step. All right, guys, so now I have two more parts that I need to cut out. I need to cut out a head shape, and I need to cut out a wing shape. So depending on the sizes of clay rectangles that I gave you, you might be able to fit both onto one, or you might need to use one and then the other. So I decided I'm going to, I don't think I can fit, I wonder if I tried it this way, I might be able to. So yes, it does work. So I can save this one. So I can fit this wing and the head on the same piece of clay because I rearranged. So same thing, I'm going to take this wooden skewer, I'm going to draw around the edge of my clay. And then I'm going to pull that off. And then same thing, I'm going to draw around this circle shape. Okay, and then I'm going to pull that off. So go ahead and do that, and then I bet you know what comes next. All right, guys, so we're going to take our tongue depressor that has the pointy ends, and same thing, we're going to just push it down into the clay. And I was able to cut this piece away from that, and then I'm going to cut around this shape. I'm going to cut around just a little bit more. All right, so now I have my wing shape. Okay. And then the last piece I'm going to cut out is this head shape. And I'm just going to rotate my tongue depressor around. If I want to push off that part and get rid of the excess, I can. And then I'm just going to follow around like that. And then if there's some little clay boogery things, you can smooth them with your fingers. Okay. And there I have all my pieces that I need so far. So I've got my body, I've got my wing, and I've got my head. Okay. So what I would like you to do is get those parts ready, and then we'll go on to the next step. All right, guys, so the next thing that you want to do is you want to get a little cup, a disposable cup, with just fill it with a tiny little bit of water. And then what I want you to do is I just want you to take some of the clay scraps here and just break some of the clay apart and just stick it into the water for a couple minutes. Okay. And what that's going to do is that's going to soften the clay, and it's going to turn it into something called slip, which is a type of glue that we use when we put clay pieces together. All right. So we're going to let that sit there for a minute. And in the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, oh, you know what else I forgot though? Is we need one more part to our bird before we put this all together. And what I want you to do is take one of your scraps, and we're going to need to do a triangle shape for the bird's beak, okay? And so what you can do is you can draw a triangle shape that you think might be good. And then again, you'll take your wooden tongue depressor and cut it out. So here's my beak, and when I set it onto my bird, that looks like about a good size. Okay. If it's too big, you can make it smaller. If it's too small, you can just cut another one from another scrap. Okay. All right. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to attach the wing to the bird's body. And one thing we want to be careful of is we want to leave some room at the bottom here, because what's going to happen is we are going to end up poking 2 holes with our straw. And those 2 holes are going to be holes that we're going to insert wire into and twist and to turn into the bird's legs. All right. Then we're also going to poke 3 holes in this upper corner here, where we're going to add all kinds of fun ribbons and pipe cleaners and whatnot to add a really fun bird's tail. And then we're also going to poke 2 holes up here to create a little bit of a hanger for our bird. Okay. So we're going to think about attaching the wing, and you can attach the wing kind of in the middle. You can attach it at an angle if you'd like to. Just be sure that we leave some room here for the holes that we're going to punch. Okay. So I think I'm going to kind of attach my wing here like this. Okay. And then what you can do is you can trace around, again, you can trace around this wing shape with your wooden skewer. And then when I pull this off, I can kind of see where my wing goes when I go to put it back down here. All right. So what I'm going to do is in this space where I pulled the wing off, I'm going to take my wooden skewer and I'm going to draw some lines going vertically, and then I'm going to draw some lines going horizontally. And so I'm kind of roughing up this clay here. And you might say, why are we doing that? Well, what happens with clay is that in order to attach the pieces, we need to do something called slipping and scoring. And what that does is that allows the clay pieces to attach to one another and to stay attached. Because if I just stuck this on like this, what happens is the clay, when it dries, it shrinks. And so the pieces will tend to fall apart. So I'm going to rough up that. And then I'm also going to take my wooden skewer and I'm doing the same thing on the back of my wing here like that. So just simply like that. And then after your clay, those little clay pieces have sat in the water for a minute, you're going to get kind of like a little bit of this gooey gray. And what you're going to do is you're just going to rub that. This is the slip. I'm going to rub the slip on here. And then I'm going to take some and I'm going to rub it there. And then I'm going to place my wing kind of where I drew it. And then I'm just going to press on it just gently. I don't need to press on it super hard. And if any of the slip scooted out from underneath, I can kind of take my wooden skewer and kind of smooth it around the outside edge, but otherwise we are pretty good. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to poke the holes into our bird. So I'm going to show you how to do that. The first hole that we're going to poke is going to be in this upper corner here. We don't want to poke it too close to the edge because we don't want to break we want it to stay solid all the way around it. So I'm going to kind of position mine sort of right here, and you can see I have space on either side of it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push that straw all the way down, and then I'm going to push it out. And you can see what happened is the clay went into the straw, and to get it out, I'm just going to kind of squish on it a little bit, but it doesn't really need to come out. It's not important. So there's hole number 1. Then I'm going to come down from that diagonally, and you can see I have another hole here. So I'm going to poke hole number 2. I'm going to make sure it went to the other side. And then I have some more clay stuck in my straw. I can squish it out if I want to. And then I'm going to do hole number 3, which I'm going to do kind of diagonal from this one right over here. So I'm going to go boop. Make sure it went all the way through. And then I'm just going to take that clay out. So there are my 3 holes in the tail area. And those will be good because those will allow me to touch some fancy things once my bird is fired. Okay. Then I want to make 2 holes down here at the bottom. And again, they'll be side by side. And I want to make sure that they're not too close to the edge. So I'm going to kind of push it back up here. So there's one. I'm going to poke, and there's one hole. And I'm just squishing out the clay. And then I'm going to do another hole next to it, but not right next to it. I'm going to give it a little bit of space. And there's my second hole there. Okay. And then directly above those holes, you can just kind of slide this up. I'm going to do 2 holes up here. So again, I'm going to make sure it's not too close to the top. So I'm going to poke hole number 1 and hole number 2. All right. So there you have it. There are our holes. Our wing is attached. Now what we're going to do is we're going to attach the head. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the head, and the head is going to overlap a little bit on the edge here, kind of like that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to again trace around the edge here, and I can kind of see this is where the head is going to go. So what I can do is I can take my wooden skewer, and I'm going to go this way with my skewer, and then I'm going to go that way with my skewer. And then I'm also going to then do it just on the part that's kind of right in here. So I don't need to do the whole thing. So I'm going to go this way, and then I'm going to go that way. And that part is going to meet up right there. So then again, I'm going to take some of my ooey gooey slip, and I'm going to rub it on this spot right here. And then I'm going to take some more, and I'm going to rub it on this spot right there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, again, just push and kind of smooth that head so it is now attached to the body. And if there was some extra clay on the back that was kind of coming out, I can kind of smooth that just like that. So this is what the back looks like, and this is what the front looks like, and it's nice and attached. Okay. Then for the final part of this, I'm going to attach the beak to the front part of the bird's head. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to rough up in this little spot right here. I'm going to attach the beak, and then I'm going to rough up the back part of the bird's beak like that. And then I'm going to take my slip, and then I'm going to attach. And then again, if there's some slit that's scooting out, I can kind of smooth it. And there we have it. So there is our bird. So go ahead and attach your parts in your pieces. And then I'll tell you the final steps of what we're going to finish up for today. All right, guys. So the last thing that we're going to add to our bird is some texture. And we're also going to think about adding an eye for our bird. Now, there's a number of ways we can add the eye. You can use your wooden skewer and you can draw a bird's eye into the clay. Or if you don't want to do that, the nice thing about that is if you draw something just lightly into the clay and then rub over it, you can make it disappear. You could use a marker cap that you think is interesting. Like I'm going to try to push this marker cap into the clay and I get this really cool, you guys can see this really kind of cool looking eye. So I think I might leave that like that because I think it looks cool. And if you want to, you can also, like let's say you want to add a line there for the bird's beak. And then the last thing we can do is we can think about adding, just like when we drew our birds before, we can add some feather texture. So you can think about some things around your house that you might like to press into the clay. Or if you don't have some things, you can also even just use, I'm going to use this popsicle stick and show you how to use that. But you can use your wooden skewer if you want to, and you can draw feathers into your clay with the wooden skewer if you would like to do that. If you don't want to do that, I'm just going to smooth that away. You can just take a tiny little bit of water and that smooths that away. Another thing you could do is you could take this popsicle stick, and what I like to do is I push it, I'm pushing it into the clay, and I'm getting this kind of cool sort of feather texture, and I like that. So you can do that. All right, so you can do something like that. You could also do a combination. So maybe you do that and then you add some more lines over top of it. It's totally up to you. You can kind of design it however you would like. Okay. And then the important thing is once you are all finished, then what you're going to do is we're going to turn our bird over, set it down on the cardboard like this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my wooden skewer and I'm going to just gently write my name. So I'm going to write Heather. H. So you can just put your first name and your last initial. And then that way we know that it's yours. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn this back over and I'm going to get my clay container. Okay. And the bird should fit perfectly back into the container, just like this. Okay. And what you can do is you can put the lid back on, and then you can have your parents take this back to school, and there'll be a box under the table where they pick up your materials every week that says first grade birds, and then they can put your bird right in there. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to put your bird into a very hot fire, and the hot fire is going to make this clay nice and hard. And after the clay becomes nice and hard, I'm going to send this back to you with something called glaze. And we're going to paint the glaze on top of the bird. Then we're going to put it in the hot fire again. And then the bird is going to become shiny like glass. And then for the final step, I'm going to give you some twisty wire for the legs and some cool things for the tails to finish off our bird so that they look really, really cool. Okay? So this is it. Now, after the bird is put away, you may have a bunch of extra clay. Okay? And this is clay from the scraps. And you are welcome. The clay might have gotten a little bit hard because it was sitting out. But here's what you can do. There's two options. You can take the clay and you can throw it away. Or you may be interested in creating with it. And if it's a little bit hard, what I would do is get a damp paper towel. I would wrap it in the paper towel. And then I would put it in a Ziploc bag. And I might let it sit for a day or so. And then you'll find that when you take it out, then the clay will be a little bit moister again. Now, you can feel free to experiment around with the clay and you can try to make some things. The only thing I would suggest is that if you do make something that you want to keep it, that you send it back to school so that I can fire it in the kiln so that it becomes nice and hard and doesn't break. Because clay, in this particular instance, if it dries, it's very fragile and it can break very, very easily. All right. So that is that. And I hope that you had fun working with the clay. And if you have any questions, I'll look forward to talking to you guys on Tuesday. So have a great week and I'll talk to you soon.